Loretta, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm just amazed at how early you are awake and ready to go, and you look so put together. And when I asked you, so for everyone listening, we're 3 hours different. So I'm recording this at 10 a.m. and it's 7 a.m. for Loretta. And
Yeah.
I asked her, I was like, are you sure 7 a.m. is okay? She's like, I haven't slept in since the 80s, which I thought was really funny.
Which is very true.
Oh my, I was like up so late writing holiday cards for, like I said earlier, I'm getting so much done. So holiday cards for all my clients.
Yeah.
And I was up late. And even for this 10 a.m. recording, I was like, oh my God, I need to get a coffee in me. Let's go. So
Yeah.
I need to take a page out of your book on how to get up very early and be fine.
I don't know if you want a page in this book, but you know what? I think I haven't slept in so long that it just comes natural to me to get up this early. But the downside of that is like by 7:30, when everybody's probably ready to go out, I'm like, okay, good
Yes.
night.
I have a close friend that's very similar, and it's funny. She's up with the birds, like I always say, but
Yeah.
she's my age, so she still loves to like party and go out and stuff. And
Yeah.
it hurts her. Like by 7:30, she's like falling asleep. But she's been
Exactly.
up since 5.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my story too. I'm like, all right, so if you could turn off the street lights, I would appreciate that because it's night.
I know. Obviously, the winter doesn't affect you as much being in California, but
Mhm.
my God, it gets gloomy and dark here around 4 p.m.
Oh, wow.
and it's
We're
winter.
about 5. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we've had a lot of
5
like
o'clock.
gray weather.
Oh, yeah. California is hit and miss. So you might go outside today, and right now it's pretty sunny,
Yeah.
but tomorrow it might be overcast and cloudy. A couple of days ago, I went outside to leave for work, and it was like ice on my windshield. So you never know.
Oh, I've never been to California. I wonder if I'd
Ah,
love it. What part,
I
like
think
right in like what part?
like I'm LA County, Los Angeles counties, but I'm really close. I would say about 15, 20 minutes at the most from the beach, from like Redondo Beach and Torrance Beach and things like that. So yeah, it's beautiful. I think that's why people come here because of the
Yeah.
weather and I guess everybody's quest to be famous.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I feel like I would really like California. I think I would miss winter sometimes though. Like I do
Mhm.
enjoy winter. I enjoy winter sports. I enjoy the time of year when it starts getting cold and cozy. I don't know if like the holidays would feel the same if it wasn't for winter for me.
So you want the snow?
I love the snow,
Oh, well, you could get that in Northern
I
California, just an
guess.
hour drive away. It's Big Bear, and Big Bear it
Okay.
snows up there. So
Oh,
you can still
okay.
have it.
You could have it all there.
You could have it all.
Love
You could
that.
have the surf on one side, and you could have
Yeah.
your snow on the other.
Oh, don't tempt me. Okay, I want to get into it. I want to ask you a bit about your story, but first I want to ask you, is there anything going on in your life lately that's kind of stressing you out or setting you back, or even any big wins that you've had lately?
Oh God, I have a lot of stress going on in my life currently. I think the biggest stress, and I know I'm not alone in this, is the fact that it's the holidays,
Yeah.
and you're trying to prepare. And ultimately, if you have children or of course, loved ones, you want to be good to them, and you don't want them to get a lump of coal in their stocking. So you really thrive to like get them something really nice and personable. I try not to do gift cards, so I'm like, you really try to think about the person and like, what would they like? And that means I got to spend time at the store, which I don't like doing. So it's very stressful. And now Christmas is a week away. And
Yeah.
all I can think about is I need 4 more weeks. And clearly that's not going to happen. So yeah, I'm definitely feeling the stress right now. And I kind of just wish I could hibernate like a
Oh,
bear
I feel
and
that
wake up
way.
when it's over. Like, is it over now? Okay, I'll come out.
How do you deal with the stress? We were chatting a little bit about this before I hit record, and I was saying, like, I have a crazy to-do list. And for me, how I'm getting through it, it's like I'm looking at it and it's like, what really needs to get done? Like, what if randomly some of these things fell off my to-do list and never got done, would it be okay? And that's how I'm kind of deciphering, like, almost like let it go, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you kind of have it right. Definitely look at your to-do list and prioritize, right? Like if something can definitely wait for next week, then let it wait. Knock the things that are a priority out of the way, and everything else will just have to come when it comes. And I know it's easy for me to say this, but obviously try not to stress out. Like really take this time and incorporate some self-care and self-preservation, because you're no good to anyone else when you're struggling and stressed. And then of course all the physical things that come with stress that people don't think about, like, the stomach aches and the acne and all the other things, so really prioritize, and don't forget to throw some self-care in there, because you need to be at your best too.
Yeah, I feel that as I'm recording
Mhm.
this, a little stuffed up, and I feel the aches in my back, but the show must go on at all
The
times,
show
like
must go
we're
on.
saying.
Right,
Oh my
right.
goodness.
Yeah,
I'm very
absolutely.
impressed and curious about your career path. How do you go from a deputy sheriff to working in relationship and mental health coaching? It's a very, very different.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of
Yeah,
psychology in your background. So obviously you've always been curious about
absolutely.
humans.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
for many reasons. I could recall even before that I was on the department as a deputy, I was always very curious about humans. And
Mm.
one of my favorite things to do was to just sit and watch people as they go about their daily lives, like maybe sitting at a park and just watching them. And I would try to figure them out, like, oh, that couple clearly they're not getting along. Look at their body language, you know what I mean? Or whatever. I was just always very curious about humans and why we do the things that we do. But the reason I got into law enforcement, it wasn't because I was trying to save the world or anything like that. It was because I was trying to save myself. At the time, I was going through a divorce. And I'm laughing because I was like, you could have done anything else, but you chose to go into law enforcement. But I really was looking for a way to feed my kids, honestly,
Right.
and it paid very well. And I was like, hey, I think I could do this. Before that, I was an insurance agent, and somehow I don't know what I was doing that day. I believe that the universe responds to what you need. And I was looking at something, and then like an ad came up, and I was like, why not? Not thinking, like literally just take one step at a time. Like if I
Mhm.
get through the interview, we'll see. And anyway, so long story short, I made it through the backgrounds, got through the academy, got my first assignment. And like I said, it was just a way to feed my kids. And then I ended up loving it. Like, oh, this is amazing. And it
You were
was
surprised.
I was surprised
Yeah, to
because
love it.
yeah, I really was. Because I was just
Mm.
like, again, I'm just here to feed the kids. That's it.
Yeah.
And then once I got into the field and working with my different partners and different assignments, that's when the curiosity in terms of mental health peaked, because
Mm.
I started seeing things like working in the jails. Like I remember the first time I saw someone, and I didn't even have the lingo then. I didn't know
Mm.
I didn't have the verbiage. I just knew something wasn't right. And I remember seeing this gentleman in a cell, and he was terrified, and I couldn't understand why. Like, what is he afraid of? And he was in the cell alone, and he was looking around, just like very curious, and he was just scared out of his mind. And he had stripped down, he was completely nude, and had used the bathroom on himself. And I was like, what is
Mm.
going on? And then of course, now looking back, like he was completely psychotic and having auditory and visual hallucinations, and
Yeah.
those things are terrifying. And so that's when I really took off and was like, this is something that I might be interested in. And then the other part of that is that I had, or still have, family members who started to develop also mental illnesses like depression and anxiety. And again, I didn't have the verbiage for that. I just knew something wasn't wrong. So it
Yeah.
was those two things that compelled me to want to go down the path of mental health.
Mhm.
And after working in law enforcement for so long, I decided like this is probably a good time to pivot, and went back to school, got my master's, and then eventually resigned and then completed my doctoral degree.
Wow. How many years of schooling was that?
God, for my master's was 2, and then my doctorate was 3.
Wow.
But I've been in school forever because I literally started with my AA. So I
Mhm.
started the AA bachelor's and got the whole gamut after that. So I
Wow.
think I have 10 years of schooling.
Wow. A lot of schooling. Psychology and mental health is such a an umbrella, but you seem to really have gone down the relationship coaching. Why?
Yeah, because I think that my experiences with relationships, I tend to be the friend that gets the late night phone calls.
Ooh.
Girl, you know what he did? Girl, he did this. You know what I mean? I'm like, I told you, like
Mm. I saw it
five
from a
con
mile away.
yeah, 5 conversations ago, this was not going to go well.
Mm,
You know what I mean? But I was that friend and confidant. And then I was like, you know what? I might have something here. And then that's something else that I really enjoy because, again, you're dealing with humans and human
right.
nature. And in relationships, our experiences, included childhood, really sets the tone for the type of relationships we're going to encounter, is my
Yeah.
belief, and how you play out those parts in your relationship. So I was like, huh, I could add this to my repertoire. And I really grown to love it and enjoy it.
Do you work with couples or more like people on their own mostly?
Both.
Both.
So mostly couples. It always starts out, of course, an individual in the relationship reaches out because they're experiencing some sort of challenge in their relationship and maybe feel like their partner isn't listening, or maybe they feel like the relationship is going south and they're trying to salvage it. So it starts out there, but I always meet with the couple at some point in the relationship, even though maybe that main person is my client. At some point, I will meet with their partner at least maybe 2 times to get their perspective of things and then go back from there. If it's just an individual, it's because they are struggling finding love, I guess, and just trying to see like if there's anything that they could do to maybe better themselves and find a good partner.
Mm. Relationships. Oh my God, I love talking about them.
Right.
I always say to everyone, relationships is the mirror that you do not want to even look in because it brings up everything that you still need to heal, in my opinion.
Right.
So
Right.
it's no surprise that the conversation around relationships a lot of the time is conflict and triggers and insecurities and someone's not listening, and it's no surprise, but it makes you wonder. It's like the healthy relationships or the relationships that we deem as successful, what the hell are they doing differently, you know?
Right. Absolutely. And the thing is, I think you kind of touched on it earlier prior to the recording that on the outside, it seems as everything is going good,
Mm,
right? Like everybody puts up this facade. I'll share with you, like when I first started doing relationship coaching, I would go on social media and put like posts just to see like people's thoughts that like are you experiencing fill in the blank, whatever. And I would getting any response, like no one would say anything, or I would say like, has the D word come up, divorce? And
right.
I know for a fact you're in my friend circle and I know you talked about divorce. and,
So
and
answer my
nope.
post.
And so answer the post and nothing. And I'm like, huh.
Huh.
And then I realized, like it's a very private topic. No one wants to really talk about those challenges that they are facing in their relationship. Everyone wants to, come across that everything is okay. And, I respect that to some extent. But I think at the end of the day, there's no relationship without a challenge. There's no relationship without an argument. If you don't have an argument in your relationship or some sort of disagreement, you're probably in it alone because you're human. So
Agreed.
we're going to have differences. You know what I mean? But like I said, I respect the fact that people want to be private, but I also do think that we should be somewhat transparent and talk about this because number one, it really does help to talk about those things and try to problem solve. And number two, you don't know who's listening and may need to hear that, hey, you're going through the same thing too. Like maybe you're somebody that I could lean on, or we could work together to figure this out. But yeah, it's a lot of challenges out there and people just don't really want to talk about it.
I resonate because I've been in relationships in the past and I don't really tell my friends or family what really went down until it's all over, said
Mm-hmm.
and done with.
Yeah.
And I was recently having a conversation with a friend about a previous relationship, and she said, I had no idea that was going on. And I kind
Mm.
of smiled, and it's like when you're dating someone, you want to protect them. Like you want
Right.
other people to like them. You
Right.
don't want people to think like there's things going wrong in your relationship. There's a lot of shame around it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's not until it's all said and done with that, and your friends and family feel like, oh my God, like I could have been there. I could have been a shoulder or an ear to vent to, but I didn't know.
Right. Right. Or sometimes they're the first to know.
Yeah.
And, because we are behind this cloud of, I love him, whatever have you, we don't see it. Or maybe we see it and choose to ignore it, just depends. But yeah, there is sometimes a lot of shame and embarrassment. Like you said, you do want to protect your partner because maybe you believe in them, that maybe this is, maybe they're just going through a difficult time right now
Right.
and they just need some time to grow and learn. And, we'll work this out and then we'll be able to share our success story, he was going through some things, but look at
Mhm.
us now. You know what I mean? Everybody
Right.
wants that story, So, but yeah, you're right. We try to hide behind it until maybe things get better. And then at that point we're willing to share. But sometimes, you hid behind the wall for so long, you start to lose visual of who you are
Mm.
because you put this front up for so long, you may get to a point where you don't recognize yourself anymore.
Yeah. I know. And then you wonder, it's funny when you start actually showing who you are and revealing who you are, it seems like that's when the problems start coming. And then there's a lot of self-worth issues that come up in terms of like, oh, they don't really like who I am now that I'm kind of
Mhm.
feeling more comfortable to open myself up.
Right.
And there goes the spiral.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Because at some point, everybody has that honeymoon stage. And I
Yes.
believe that we all put our best foot forward, maybe the first 6 months, maybe year, if you can get
Yeah.
that far, and you're like, oh, I'm laughing because I'm like, I am habitually late, a chronic late
Me
person.
too. Me
Like
too.
I'm like, I don't know. What's the point of being on time? Anyway, I'm working on that.
I'm working
Um,
on it in 2023, so I feel you.
exactly.
It's a
Yeah.
hard one for me.
It is. It is. I'm like, I'm always late and I have the best intentions, but
Yeah.
whatever. And so that's, something that I still struggle with. But I remember my cousin telling my now husband before we got married, she was like, she's always late. No matter what you do, no matter lie to her, tell her it's at 8 o'clock,
Yep.
even though it's at, whatever, just lie to her because she's always late. So in the beginning, I did my best to try to, be on time or whatever, because I didn't want him to know this was a thing.
Yeah.
Um, but now
But
he
the truth
knows.
came out after.
Exactly. Now he knows.
I love that you brought up this example because I went on a first date recently and I was just in my head about it. And I ended up just like losing track of time and being late and like 15 to 20 minutes late. And he's definitely the type of person where that is a big sign of disrespect for him. And
Oh.
I felt really guilty. I was like I was getting really in my head saying like, oh, I've fucked my chances up with this guy,
Mm-hmm.
blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next day, the next few days, like I said to myself, if that was going to be the deal breaker, it was going to come up in a week, a month, or 3 months, anyways, because I'm known to be not on time. So
Right.
if that was going to be the end of it, better now than
Better
later
now.
on. So,
Exactly.
but I still
Exactly.
want to work on my lateness because I don't like that quality about myself. So,
Yeah.
but I will
Yeah.
work on that on my own
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And then, it's a thing, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm sure for some people, they're like, oh, that's very disrespectful and
Mm,
inconsiderate. And to me, I'm like, yeah, it can be. I see that. But there could be worse things,
I
like, oh,
agree.
maybe this person is like, have some underlying self-absorbed issues or
Mm,
trust issues or other things. But again, we want to respect our partner's
mhm.
wishes. And, if being truant is an issue, then of course we want to do better.
Yeah, we'll try.
Mhm. Right. We'll
I
try.
want to ask you about, I want to dig into like backtracking a little bit
Mhm.
about when you're going through something with, or say like a relationship's not working, you're going through it and you tend to keep it private. I know you've spoke about going through divorce and that, yeah, your previous relationship was a bit abusive. Did anyone know anything was going on or did you keep it a lot of it private?
I kept a lot of it private because I
Yeah.
didn't want anyone to know that. That's embarrassing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have been. Yeah, at all. It shouldn't have been because I really needed a lot of support then, and I should have said something. Maybe it would have allowed me to get out of the relationship faster. But I didn't say anything. I think they noticed, not because I had bruises or anything,
Yeah.
but the other part of it is when I stress, talk about those physical symptoms, I, food is not a thing. So I really forget to eat. And
Yeah.
because of that, I had lost a tremendous amount of weight in that relationship multiple times. And I think they knew something was wrong. I remember my family hadn't seen me for like 6 months because at some point in our relationship, we lived in Colorado because he was in the military.
Mhm.
And so I came home on like one of his breaks, and I remember my cousin saw me in her mouth just like,
Wow. Like
like,
so
are
like an
you?
unusual amount of weight. Like this is not a healthy
Yeah,
amount of weight gone.
exactly. Like drop like 20, 30 pounds drastically.
Wow.
And I didn't notice at all. It was the stares from other people, like, you don't look so good. You look really, you don't look healthy.
Right.
Because I was so busy living in that world of surviving that I didn't even notice. Yeah,
We
it
talked
was a
about red
thing.
flags.
Mhm.
So, at what point of the relationship did it start getting abusive?
I would say before the marriage, even
Wow.
before the marriage, that it was physically and emotionally abusive. Definitely, for sure, emotionally abusive before. But again, you live under this cloud like, oh, it's going to get better. Or if we just do this, nothing's healthy, right? Like, let's go to counseling. It wasn't that was not my thought. Like, if
No.
I just maybe don't cause a fuss, or if I maybe if I cook dinner on time or make his favorite meal or
Yeah.
whatever, like in my head, it was like, it'll get better. You know what I mean? And then we'll live this fairy tale of happily ever after. And of course, that's not the case. But it started really early. I mean, it has to, because in the world of an individual who is abusive, it has to start off with some sort of manipulation and control,
Right.
right? You know what I mean? They have to do that. They have to get you in your corner. That you start to isolate from your family and friends. At some point you're going to start seeing less and less of them because you're going to be involved in their world, and that's part of the plan always. So it starts really early, and I don't care what relationship you're in. When you're with an individual like that, those are the first red flags: the control, the isolation, the manipulation. That's where it starts.
Right. I'm reading a book, or I'm just about to finish a book, and a big part of the book is around, yeah, the woman was abused in her relationship. So that what you said, where you said, I was always just trying to make things like right, like cook dinner on time or just get out of the
Mhm.
way, or you're always almost like maneuvering things to avoid being hurt or something going wrong. And the amount of stress that adds to a person is insane. And
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong, like it's almost like the actual abuse is not the stress, it's almost like the anticipation for it.
Right. Exactly. Like, what is going to happen? You are constantly walking on eggshells because you
Yeah.
don't know. You don't know what's going to, come. Something is coming. You just don't know what. It could be the form a backhand. It could be a form of yelling or something being thrown across the room. It really just depends. But something is coming. So you're constantly walking on eggshells. You're in fight or flight at all times
Yeah.
because you don't know.
How does that affect your daily life? Like knowing that's happening in your environment at home, how does that affect work and how you deal with family and friends and just how you live your everyday life?
It's almost as if you develop a I don't know, like another personality or something like that. Because when you're in public and when you go to work, at least for me, it was, I'm happy, everything is great, right?
Yeah.
You put on that front, you go to work, you perform really well. Listen, I would volunteer to stay late because I didn't want to go home.
Right.
You know what I mean? So for me, it shifted where I was like the best employee.
Wow.
Because it was also a really good distraction. Like if I could just crank out these, assignments and reports or whatever have you, because it was a getaway. So, but I know with some people, it will affect them the opposite way, where they're not performing because they can't disassociate. You know what I mean? So they are constantly thinking about, what's going on at home or whatever. I was able to compartmentalize and just like,
Good.
this is what I was able to do. I don't know if that was so good, honestly, because,
Fair. It's
because,
you're avoiding all the feelings and you're almost, yeah, like you're letting the
yeah,
stress build up.
exactly. And then again, hence the weight loss and the other physical
Mm.
symptoms or whatever have you. So, but that's how I was able to deal with it, that I became like this really good performer at work, and no one at work I don't think would have known the wiser. Maybe they
Wow.
noticed. No one ever said anything to me.
When you hindsight's always 2020. So after you went through that divorce and got out of that relationship, did you ever look back and say, "Oh my God, the writing was on the wall from the very first few days"? So what did that
Oh,
look like for
yeah.
someone listening today?
I would say definitely, like I said, the control and the
Yeah.
manipulation that started really early, because, first of all, I was 18 when
Yeah.
I met him. So I was already young and immature as it is. And so I think it started out okay. Like I really felt at some point we were truly like madly in love in
Yeah.
the beginning. But like I said, I think the control definitely started early, where, they guilt trip you like, oh, I have a family function. Oh, so you rather spend whatever with this family and not me, whatever have you. You're like, okay, well, I'll just let them know that I can't make it. Or if you could just pop in for 20 minutes and then we'll leave, stuff like that. So, but looking back, that's definitely how it started.
As you say that, it doesn't sound that bad when it's right at the beginning and small. Like someone could
Mhm,
look at that and say, "Oh, like he loves spending time with me. We're so good together. He
mhm.
wants to get to know me more." It's very
Right.
easy to change the connotation of that.
Right, exactly. And that's exactly what you think. When you're in it, you're like, he just wants to spend time with me. He just can't live without me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you're like, oh, this feels really good because this person's clearly constantly thinking about me and wants, us to be together. And he can't, foresee himself without me in that moment. But that's the lie we tell ourselves. And that's what they want you to believe until it all comes crashing down. And then you realize, oh crap, I'm in trouble.
What was that moment for you when it came crashing down where you thought to yourself, "What? Like where did this come from?"
Think that moment came much later than it was supposed to, because at that time we already had two kids. And so
Wow.
my
How old are they?
focus, now they're adults.
How old were
But
they at the time?
at the time they were probably like 5 and 7. And
Wow.
so my whole focus was protect them, focus on them, you know, I'll deal with whatever, but I just wanted to protect them.
Yeah.
And then the other part of that too was, at some point in the relationship, the he began to cheat. The adultery side came out, and that happened many times. But again, I was just, at this point, I was just really focused on my children and kind of in my head wanted to make sure that they were safe, and they weren't at all,
Yeah.
because they're witnessing things, you know what I mean, and they're hearing things. But I thought that they were safe. But it wasn't until year 10 that somehow I began to believe in myself, wanted better for myself, wanted better for my two female children that I was raising, because they needed to know that this is not okay, and that
Mhm.
they're by no means should they be in a relationship when they become adults that's like this. That I started to develop the strength to say, you know what, no more. And it's the funniest thing when you get to that point, because I remember, again, this is after like years of mostly emotional abuse and him cheating, many nights of him not coming home and, drinking. And I remember one night he was in the living room. Our kids were at his parents' house for the weekend. And something literally just came over me. Now, I'm sure I was having these thoughts of, I need to leave, I need to leave. But that night, for whatever reason, I got up. I was in the bedroom. I got up. I got dressed. I put on something really cute. I did my makeup that I hadn't done in so long.
Right.
And he was sitting in the living room. And I walked into the living room and I just looked at him and I said, when I come back, you need to be gone. And he's like, what did you say? And I said, you heard me. When I come back, you better be gone. And he didn't ask a question. He didn't say anything. Maybe I didn't give him enough time because at that time I walked out the door and I met a friend of mine at Dave and Buster's. And we just sat there and had like a couple of drinks, ate, laughed, and talked. I told her what I'd said. And when I came back, maybe 2 hours later, he was gone.
He didn't
Yeah.
put up a fight.
He didn't put up a fight. He was seeing someone else. So it was probably a blood. He's like, great, I could go live this other
He was
life.
seeing someone else while you guys were still living together and you knew about it?
Yeah. I wasn't happy with it, but he was definitely seeing someone else. He would of course lie to me, but I knew that he was seeing someone. Yeah, because she would call the house. You know what I mean? And
God.
I mean, bold, right? Like she would call the house and ask for him. And, her and I would get into it. And I'm like, you realize he's a married man. And she would hang up on me, or he would do the late night thinking I'm not noticing. He would get up and go to his car and they would talk on the phone. Yeah. And then I would go to the car. And then I remember one night I was like, who are you talking to? And he's like, it's just my friend. And I was like, let me see the phone. And then when he gave me the phone and I took it, she hung up. But I knew something was wrong. So anyway, he did leave that night. And now I just remember like this new sense of freedom. It's one of the first things I experienced. Yeah.
Do you think the feeling of freedom overpowered any feelings of being scared? Like you have 2 kids on your own, like you don't know what's next, but it seems like you still felt more relief.
It was definitely relief. I didn't cry. I literally felt like, yeah, this is freedom. This is great. Now, were there some fears? Of course, because now I have to provide for these children and make all this work. But nothing felt better than it's nothing better than leaving your house and knowing when you come home, like you are going to have peace. There's nothing better than that feeling like I'm going to walk in this door and I'm not going to see the house in chaos. I'm not going to see, bottles of alcohol in the trash. I'm not going to have to be yelled at. I'm not going to have a conversation about, do you have money for the rent? I'm not going to have to do any of those things. You know what I mean? And so the honest to God truth was I'd rather struggle alone than to deal with this.
Wow.
And that's what I live by.
I'm curious your perspective on this. I've heard stories of women being married to men in the military, and it sounds like a lot of the similar issues. Do you see that pattern?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I remember,
just everything they go through working in the military?
I would imagine so, but for him, I don't think that his issues were military related. Excuse me. I think those issues came long before the military. The military just exasperated it. Yeah.
Well,
for sure.
Obviously, you're an expert in psychology and relationship and mental health. So when someone is abusive and controlling and narcissistic and ends up cheating, what's so deep within that it's causing them to do that?
I'll go with the personal experience and then professional. So personally, I think when people are, tend to grow up and be, abusive and whatever have you, you would think, well, I'll say from his experience, he was not abused. He actually came from what I perceive was a really good family. 2 parents, loving, God-fearing. I think something was just, he was at some point the favorite. And I know that sounds weird, but he had his way a lot is the best way I could describe it.
How does that affect a person?
Well, you're not used to hearing no.
Right.
You're not used to hearing any pushback. Like, how dare you say no? How dare you not tell me what to do? I've been getting my way all my life.
No
And then
compromise.
no compromise at all. You know what I mean?
No,
It's
no idea or care for anyone else's feelings
mhm.
or situations.
Exactly. And that's part of, being a narcissist or having a narcissistic traits, right? It's
Right.
like you care less. There's no empathy for anybody else. It's all about me. The world revolves around me.
Right.
And then that also speaks to the professional point of view, in terms of how we develop these traits is really the childhood experiences and those relationships that we have with our first loves, which is our caregivers, like
Yeah.
how they treated us, growing up, whether it's issues with abandonment or maybe they were too involved and enmeshed in the lives, you know what I mean? And not giving that child enough opportunity to learn and grow and to maybe have some experiences that would help to create a kinder human. But yeah, it's really those rooted childhood experiences that we take those experiences into our adult relationships, and then it could go either way.
Do you have any contact with him at all?
Hmm.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he's still in your kids' lives and everything.
Yeah, my we I would say every couple of months I would have like not a full on conversation like, hey, how are you? Because at the end of the day, that's my children's father.
Yeah.
And always wanted my children to, love their father because that's their father. Maybe he has flawed characteristics, but we all do.
Yeah.
So, still love your father. But yeah, I'm remarried now. Like I said, we say hi to each other. I have no ill feelings towards him whatsoever. I had shared with someone, I think about maybe last year, the year before. I'm also a grandmother. So my eldest daughter has a
Which is
son.
crazy. You do not look like you could be a grandmother. My God.
I am. And so she had his birthday party. And of course, she's going to invite her father. And so she lived in a really small apartment at the time, and she invited his parents, and there wasn't a lot of room to sit.
Yeah, yeah.
And so my ex husband and my current husband were sitting on the same couch. And so I was like, well, this is funny. So what
Yep.
did I do? I went and sat right between them, and I was like, ain't this funny? And I put my arms around the both of them and was like, how you doing? And how you doing?
Oh
You know what I
my
mean? And it
God.
was just like, I don't have any ill feelings. Like I would have preferred not to have those experiences.
Yeah.
However, those experiences really compelled me to do some things in my life, which was one of them was going to the sheriff's academy. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So I'm grateful because there's some really good things that turned out of that horrible relationship. One again, I have two daughters with him, and then a son with my current husband. I have two beautiful daughters. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned how to fight. And I don't mean physically, but I learned how to live.
Yeah. So many women and men go through a similar experience as you with being in an abusive relationship. And it seems like you had the confidence and the courage to get the hell out, as you told the story where you said, when I come back, you better be gone. So many people don't have that though, and they stay because of the fear of what happens afterwards. It seems
Yeah.
crazier than what's happening today. What
Yeah.
advice do you have for those people that are just staying and not having the courage to make a change?
When you're in it, you feel like you're doing everything to survive. And we all know too, like statistically, it shows that when people leave those relationships, that's like a really crucial point
Mm.
where the perpetrator has come back and taken these individuals' lives, right? I would say that the day will come when you too will get the strength. And it may seem bleak now, and you may feel like there's no way that I'm going to figure this out, but you just get tired. You just get
Yeah.
tired and you just want something better for yourself. Maybe if you have children involved, you want something better for them. And it's almost like a light switch. It clicks because that's exactly what it just clicked. major discussion. I didn't even have a plan when I asked him to leave. Like, I didn't go through my finances, like, this is what I need to bring in, you know what I mean? Or this is what I need to do. It was just, I was tired,
Yeah.
and I was sick and tired of being tired. And
Yeah.
I think at some point we all get there. But, you know, even if you don't have it in you to get that fight, I would say definitely start having those conversations and get some support. You know, I mean, this wasn't that long ago that I experienced you know what I went through, but there's a lot of resources out there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of good programs out there for people, men and women, who are experiencing domestic violence or intimate partner violence. I mean, Google is a thing. Get on there and ask for help. There's all sorts of hotlines. There's all sorts of places you can go where you're kind of like in hiding if the relationship has come to that, but there's help. So talk to somebody.
I love what you said when you said it was a difficult and challenging relationship. However, you said you refuse to let it dictate your life and you see
Mhm.
it as a teachable moment and a story of survival, which I thought
Mm,
was extremely beautiful. Some
thank
people
you.
can use those moments in their life to dictate their entire life. And you thought to yourself, hell no, this is just one stepping stone. And I see so much more ahead.
Right.
Wow. I mean,
Thank you.
you have daughters, like,
Yeah.
I'm sure they've learned a lot from you watching you go through this and seeing how you've changed your life around for them and for yourself.
I hope so. I hope so
I would
because
say.
I always instilled in my kids that you know, life is difficult. And, you know, when they're young, they're like, oh, it's not fair. And it ain't. It
Mhm.
really isn't fair. But that doesn't mean you just got to lay down and just let it trample all over you. Like, you
Yeah.
really need to get up and do something because you can change your circumstances. You know what I mean? If you just put some effort into it, it really starts here. You know what I mean? If I could change this, I mean, anything is possible, not impossible.
Yeah.
Anything is possible if I just change my mindset. But, you know, yeah, just go out there and do it. And I know it sounds easier said than done, but I don't know that like my story is any different than anybody else's. I just know that was something I had to do.
Yeah. And you did it, which is phenomenal.
Thank
Last
you.
couple questions for you. The first one being we're going into a brand new year. And
Hmm.
is there anything top of mind that you want to leave within 2022 and something that you really want to pull into your life in 2023?
That's a good question. What I would like to leave in 2022 is these 17 pounds that I gained.
Oh my God, I would never say.
If I could leave that into no, just kidding. No, I'm serious. But no, I think because there's so much going on in our world, like you literally cannot turn on the TV without some tragic story. You know, a couple of days ago, you know, with Twitch taking his life, you know, like everybody was like, what's going on? I think if I could leave anything in 2022, is just like people to know that they're not alone.
Mm,
You know what I mean? And bringing to 2023 these really needed, transparent conversations about whatever challenges you are facing, whatever's troubling you, and for you to know that there's someone out there who cares and that there's someone out there that you can lean on. It just takes a phone call.
mm.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's hard to believe sometimes. It's so obvious
Hmm.
some days, but when you're in the deep trenches of feeling that
Hmm.
loneliness and no one likes you and everything's falling apart,
Yeah.
it's so easy to forget all of the good in your life.
Right. It is. It is.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got to start with gratitude. I always tell my clients, whether it's through the relationship or my mental health clients, be gracious. You know
Mm,
what I mean? You can, no matter what is going on in your life, you could find three things to be grateful for. You know what I mean? And
easily.
even if it's like I woke up this morning. Well, there you go. That's a new start. You know what I mean? That gives you an
Yeah.
opportunity to do something else with your life or start making small changes to create, you know, habits, better habits or whatever. You know what I mean? You could find three things to be grateful for. And if you could do that, every day, that also helps to change the mindset and allow you to become, a little more positive, and anxiety and depression will reduce, you know what I mean? So just be gracious.
Mm. Like I said, easier said than done sometimes, but it's as
Hmm.
simple as that,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
I
it is.
love.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, we're all going through some things. And, the other day I was just like driving down the street, and in LA, there's a lot of homeless encampments.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at them and I'm like, these people are living on the street, and night right now is about 30 to 40 degrees. They are living under tents. Probably couldn't tell you the last time they had a really good meal or shower.
Yeah.
But they were sitting there laughing and smiling like they don't have a care in the world. And I was just like, they too found something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I'm sure there's other situations where people are doing much worse than that. But I'm just saying, like, you could find something to be grateful for.
I agree. Last but not least, anyone listening today that wants to connect with you further or maybe work with you in some way, how do they do that?
So, one or two ways. You can definitely email me at Dr. Billups at cultivatingyourlife.com. And so that's DR period, B as in boy, ILLOUP as in Paul, S as in Sam, at cultivatingyourlife.com. You could go to my website, which is cultivatingyourlife.com.
Amazing. Loretta, thank you so much for starting my day like this with me. I never do podcasts first thing in the morning, and I kind of like that we did this time because it's really set
Me
the tone
too.
for my day a lot.
Yeah.
So I
Thank
love
you.
it. And I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad we were able to record before I go on holidays, because I think these are conversations that really need to be had at the beginning of a brand new year as a nice reminder to everyone that whatever your circumstances are today, you're the one that's going to have the power to change those circumstances. And I think your personal story depicts that perfectly. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me, and enjoy your holidays with your family and safe travels.
Thank you.
You're welcome.